expense ratios. So that's good news. That all happened, I think, in the last 2 weeks. They finally got it all transferred over. I know we had talked about the IMRF potential resolution to kind of switch how we treat health insurance premiums. Susan and I are working on that. I know we kind of initially thought we were going to do a survey, but we wanted to make sure to go around to all the employees and give them a chance to ask any questions. So I think our plan right now is to meet with everybody for all the departments for 10 or 15 minutes, go over questions, and then have them kind of fill out a polling question after the fact. So that's on our to-do list that we'll be working on in the next few weeks. And I think that is pretty much it.
Okay. Good, Michael? Miss Dallas. I got 2 Dallases in the room. Yeah. Do you have anything for us this morning? Yeah.
Shelley, can you talk to your mic?
Yep, I'm sorry. I just said something.
I've been unable to attend most of the county board meetings this year since the change in Thursday nights are very difficult for me to attend. So I thought I'd give an update, receive some information this morning that is ready to be released on the behalf of 911 public safety professionals. We had an event in Springfield, 911 Goes to Springfield on April 29th, which 70 public safety professionals throughout the state of Illinois attended to meet with their local legislators and talk about funding mechanisms and the lack thereof for 911. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to speak to this committee first before we go public with it and reach out to our local legislators. As a matter of fact, I reached out to Mr. Bivens years ago at a similar format. Basically, what we're looking at is a $1 increase in our 911 surcharge. The reason for that is, and this is public safety professionals, again, not asking anything from this committee or this board at this time other than the fact that letting you know it's coming, letting you know that we are going to be reaching out and that we would appreciate any support you could provide. The hope is that if we receive the $1 increase, it would take away some of the impact to the local authorities, the sheriff's department, some of the other agencies that absorb some additional costs for 911 funding. And we can absorb more of that cost through 911 surcharge. We have not had an increase since 2017. The city of Chicago surcharge is $5. $2.50 is the base plus $2.50. And I don't want to misphrase this, so I'm going to look at my notes to make sure that it's, and $2.50 is an add-on. We are currently, anybody outside of Chicago in the state of Illinois is $1.50. So we are basically just going to our legislators and asking to support legislation for parity with the Chicago base surcharge of $2.50. So this is just an informational opportunity to share this with you. And again, in the future, I may be reaching out, asking for your support in pushing this legislation forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And that surcharge, you're talking about the surcharge on your phone bill.
On the phone bill,
Individuals.
yes. Every phone bill is $1.50 and it'll say 911 surcharge on it.
Right.
We don't even get the full $1.50. Some of it goes to the state police for administration costs. Some of it goes to other avenues. And then what's left over comes back to the emergency call centers for their 100% operating expense. So there are some counties that are managing better than others, but a lot of the consolidation push in the state of Illinois is because there are some counties that are simply underfunded and can't maintain their operations because of the lack of funding.
Mm-hmm.
Lee County is not in that situation yet, and we hope not to be, but just like I said, informational purposes that.
Budget's coming up.
Well,
So.
that's another reason. I don't think it's this probably is not going to pass in spring legislation. I can pretty much guarantee that. That's the end of May, I think,
Right.
or beginning of June. But we are going to start the push now, hopefully to get it through in the fall and see what the momentum, what type of momentum we need to continue the push forward. So, as you all know, a tax increase is not easily passed in any legislation, but I think I have an informational document that I can share with Jeremy. Like I said, I just received it this morning. If he'd like to spread the word and share it with other county board officials and out in the public, we're going to be making a huge campaign push for this. Okay,
All right. Well,
Thank you.
thanks. Appreciate you coming in.
Mhm. I'll
Okay.
just stay in.
Sarah?
Patty and I just have the ARPA item, and then I'll give a wellness update as well.
Awesome.
They're on the agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. Okay, everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, entertain motion to approve. Moved by Bivens, second by Naylor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Treasurer's monthly financial report, Reed.
Yep. I guess I'll start with the general fund revenue and expense analysis. We're running just maybe a little hot on the expense side of things. We're, 1% difference from maybe where we kind of should be as an estimate from a run rate perspective. I think we might want to ask our department heads to see what they can do to tighten up a little bit to get that back on the positive side. We do have 2 3-pay period months coming up in the next 7 months. So those are obviously going to be higher expense months. We do.
There wasn't anything, I didn't notice that when I was.
Well, we're
looking through
at
things.
58%
But-
remaining budget, and based on run rate,
Right,
through 5 months of the year, we should be at 59.
and there
Right.
wasn't anything really anomalies that were.
No,
just timing issues that were
No.
popping things up.
But I do think, so, we do have some expenditures that are currently reported in department heads' general fund accounts, that I think we can move, to be expensed out of the, departmental special revenue funds, where I think we kind of made a push to, have department heads look at their special revenue funds this past budget cycle. What I don't know if they're doing is, we increased some expenditures there in our budget, but maybe they just haven't been looking to those accounts first when expensing them. Some of those expenses can easily be moved because they meet the qualifications, but we just need to kind of push our department heads to look in those areas and start using those funds. So our revenues, some of them are coming in a little bit stronger than anticipated from the state sources. But they are kind of just making up the difference for how PPRT is coming in lower than anticipated. So we're kind of right on line in terms of where we would expect to be at this time of the year. Paul is actually at IACO today, and we'll be attending a presentation from Aaron Allen, who is at the Illinois Department of Revenue about PPRT, the calculation, and kind of how that's all calculated and distributed. So hopefully he can give us some more information at next month's meeting, kind of explain some of that, why we're maybe down lower than we would have anticipated last year.
Sound like a broken record again, Reed.
Yeah.
Look, the last month, the local use tax. Why?
Well, so and actually it was from Aaron Allen that we got this information, but we probably need to look at that in conjunction with our sales tax. Sales tax and use tax, pretty much the same
Mhm.
thing. But the state had some major retailers get reclassified from paying use tax to paying sales tax. The hard part is that it's not going to be, sales and use tax is down 50%, while county sales tax is going to be up 50%. No, it's going to be we get significantly more sales tax than we do
Right.
Use tax. So you kind of got to look at the dollar amount that it went up. So our county sales tax and use tax, for the most part, are still, when you add them together, where we would expect them to be. But yes, because use tax got recalibrated, it does look not great on these financials, but I think if you look at those in conjunction with sales tax, then we're where we should be.
You know, every time I read a article about what's going on in the state budget, I can't help but read. I just have to be suspicious.
Yeah.
Who's robbing Peter to pay them instead of us? You know, when we're just, you know, the local taxing districts, we're looking for every, you know, dollar of revenue we can to make our budgets work, much less the states. And Tim's over there grinning because he lived that for how many years?
Well, that's what happens when you overspend your budget every year by $3 billion plus. When I left, it was $36 billion budget. I think it's about 56 billion, 6-7 years later.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't understand how the state has grown their budget consistently over year. Yeah. So, right. Anything else, Reed?
No, open to any questions that anybody has.
Anybody have any questions for Reed?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Not related to the information you presented, but I just thought prudent to bring up, because I'm sure if you guys saw in the news about the Rock Island County employee in the treasurer's office, that there was another Rita Crenwell, but not as
Did not
prudent.
see that.
Yeah, I think it just came out this week or yesterday.
Oh,
So I think it's just important to say, or maybe you can kind of enlighten us too. Obviously, with a slim shop, it's hard to do dual controls.
Sure.
But obviously, you know that and how important, and we get audited on that. So maybe you could just speak to that. A little
Yeah,
bit.
so, I mean, as part of our collections, right, there is quite a bit of cash that does come through our office. One of the things that we do is rotate duties. Generally, I am not the one taking cash. I am the one doing most of the bank reconciliations to our property tax software. If someone were stealing those funds that were coming in, I think we would have some pretty irate property tax holders because property owners, because they would be getting notices of their property being sold and back taxes. We generally try to segregate as much as possible. For recording revenue and handling cash, I generally don't do that, but I do reconcile the bank reconciliations to make sure that there are no discrepancies there. So I don't take the cash, gives me an opportunity to do the reconciliations. Paul also doesn't generally take a bunch of cash, and he is reviewing our reconciliations for cash.
In this case, it was actually the same situation as Rita, where there was an additional account that was unknown and became known when the person retired. And I think they set it up for, a particular, and it was an administrative assistant, so it wasn't even, somebody directly related to
Sure.
that. So obviously, and maybe because I know there would be in the audit, they would send out, notices for verification of accounts. I mean, I'm sure you're.
Yeah, yep. We do that in conjunction with Whipfly. Some of that requires the bank to adhere to what Whipfly is actually requesting. In the past, they have sent out confirmations where it kind of lists out all of our account numbers. And as a former auditor, I don't like that. I like the bank to fill all of the account numbers. So I prepared the bank recs to give to Whipfly to send out, and I took off all of our account numbers from that so
Perfect.
that, hey, it clearly states on there, please confirm any of our accounts under our tax ID number, so that we know that you are giving us all of the bank accounts that are associated with us, to try to identify whether or not there is some account out there that someone did not have authorization to open. For the most part, 95% of the bank accounts that we have through Lee County are opened with the treasurer's office and the authorization that you guys have given us to open bank accounts. There are some, obviously, where a elected official does have the authority to open an account and be on there, and that's consistent with many other counties. But those are still also, we still ask for all of those accounts when we're sending out confirmations and whatnot. And we do request that information and to put it into our system for our audit. So from all of those department heads. Ideally, right now, I think this was a point at our last year's audit, kind of a best practice from Whipley, that some of those accounts are not that the data from that is not put into our accounting software kind of in the month that it transpires. They would like it to. Some of that is challenging. Some of that is not so bad and easy. And we have made strides this year to do that. We were able to move 3 or 4 accounts onto our system so that they are recorded at the time of the transactions. Some of them are going to be harder, like with the circuit clerk. They have their own circuit clerk system, so they are tracking it. It's just not in our main accounting system. We do put it in there at the end of the year. So I'm less concerned with like an account like that because they have their own system and they can track things that way. But that's one of the ones that would be harder for us to accomplish. It would probably take some intervention between their software and our software to hopefully maybe do like an upload monthly that we could do, but they would have to probably create some reports that do that for us. So I don't know, it's probably a little longer winded.
No, that was perfect. And you hit the nail on the head with the loophole there on the banks, because I'm obviously on the bank side with that. And when a bank receives that and you have the account numbers listed, they feel that's a direction. So they're gonna, so by not including that is a huge step. Yes.
Yep. No bank account numbers. You tell us what all the accounts are.
Absolutely. So no, yeah, good. And I saw that on the audit. So good to keep on that, saying the annual versus monthly. So yeah, glad to hear you're on top of that.
Yep.
Awesome.
So it's exactly that kind of question that we need to be asking and having the dialogue with Whipley when we bring them in next month. And because as much, we're very lucky here in Lee County. And again, I don't want to blow up a head over here, but we are very fortunate to have Reed because, he's lived this and understanding, especially in small jurisdictions like we are, that the physicality is we don't have the people to do the normal controls that larger organizations take for granted. And so it actually puts more of an onus on us to, every step of our processes, we have to question. And it's not that I don't trust Reed or I don't trust the people down in the treasurer's office, or I don't trust Paul, or I don't trust Amy. It's just that it's the process that we have to use as far as being a smaller jurisdiction in order to make sure that we're doing right by the taxpayer and that there isn't problems. So it's not that, and I'm saying this for our benefit and the folks here, is that people need to understand that as the county board members being elected, that's part of our job, not to be rough on people. It's that we're all supposed to be watching out for each other. And that's part of the process.
Yeah. And I guess I would say, obviously you design your procedures to try to prevent fraud, but really what it ends up preventing are errors that were just mistakes.
Sure.
That's what it is 99% of the time. So it is still benefiting us to put these things in place. Now, obviously you don't want fraud to happen at all, right? But that, there are alternative benefits to having a process in place that does deter fraud.
Right. Yep. Good question. And we'll have to be continued next month.
Yep.
So anything else for Reed? All right. Hearing none. Thanks, Reed. All right. And insurance and grid code. Do we have anything, Nancy?
I have some information. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The insurance Committee has not met this year, lack of need, first of all. But I did speak with Jeremy this morning. We also were kind of delaying a meeting based on the fact that Susan was going to start and needed to get, her feet a little bit into that and on the ground. So Jeremy and I talked this morning and we'll schedule an insurance committee meeting. First of all, to find out where we stand with all of the insurance going on now and start to anticipate if there's going to be any increase. Because we're starting budget season, we need to know how to put that in there. So we'll have a scheduled insurance meeting coming up whenever it works out with Jeremy's schedule. And then we'll come back with that information that we get from the pool people. And I know that Sarah has a wellness report this morning, so we'd like to have her do that.
Okay.
Good morning. Tracy Bay from the Health Department and I are co-chairs of the Lee County Wellness Committee. So just an update on some things the committee's been working on. We had some employees inquire about whether they could get a discounted Y membership. So we reached out to the YMCA. We met with them last week. They are willing to waive the $50 sign-up fee and offer a 5% discount for all levels of membership. So Tracy and I are working with the Y and Susan to get that in place and get a start date and get the marketing materials out to employees so they know what those rates would be, what all is included with their membership, and all of the features that the Y has. We also offered a New Year wellness incentive, a $100 Tango Rewards e-gift card for everyone, all the employees that are on the insurance. So that was emailed out in February. We had 2 lunch and learns. We had a gardening lunch and learn March 18th. Nancy Wadsworth from the U of I Extension Master Gardeners Program came and talked. We had 15 employees attend. She was an excellent speaker, talked about, picking the right seeds, picking the right plot, the type of soil. She gave a lot of handouts. She came with lots of free goodies, shared seeds, plant starting kits with everybody. Second lunch and learn we had was on May 6th. It was on yoga and meditation. We had Crystal Friese from Ruomai Studio come in and talk about yoga and meditation. The benefits of it, kind of debunking the myths of yoga. A lot of people think that yoga is just standing on your head and you can't do it because you're not flexible. So she debunked those myths and then took the group through a guided meditation and chair yoga session. The chair yoga is stuff that can be done at your workstation in about 5 to 10 minutes, just to stretch your muscles, just to relax and refocus. And we had 14 employees attend that lunch and learn. The committee is working on planning a summer lunch and learn. We had some suggestions about what can you do with your plethora of fruits and vegetables. Come July, August, everybody is giving away zucchini, cucumbers, tomatoes. So we are looking at maybe having a speaker come in to talk about what you can make with those fresh fruits, how you can maybe preserve those, and then offering a recipe share. So if you're a gardener and you have a favorite recipe, you can bring that in and share that with the attendees. And also if you have fresh fruits and vegetables, coming out of your ears, you can bring those and share those with the people at the lunch and learn. So we're looking at a target date, probably end of July, beginning of August to do that. Our biometric dates have been scheduled for 2025. We've got Wednesday, October 8th and Wednesday, October 15th. We're looking at a potential change in location. So currently we hold it at the Hope Bible Fellowship, which is next to Oliver's Food Pride on Britton Avenue. We are looking at a location closer to this building and the new courts building to encourage people to walk to their appointments if it's during their workday or right before work. So we're working with a post house to schedule it there. So hopefully we can get people active and out walking to their appointment and then walking back to the office. But we should have marketing materials for that probably September, maybe late August, early September, and we'll email that out to the employees. We do have the Wellness Committee funds requests. So we had 2 requests from 2 Sheriff's Department employees for 2 separate items for their weight room. The committee denied this request for now because at the last meeting, we did fund a request for their weight room. The committee would like to leave funds available for all departments to apply should they want something. And at the end of the calendar year, we can review those requests again if wellness funds remain. And then the last item is at our last meeting, we talked about sponsoring employees to participate in the Reagan Run 5K that's coming up over 4th of July weekend. A survey was sent out. We received 40 responses back, 17 people that are interested in participating. and looking at the wellness committee paying that $20 registration fee. So we should have an email going out for the end of the week with the registration information and deadline to get us the registration form so that the wellness committee can pay for employees to participate in that. Our next meeting is July 29th at 2:00 in the first floor Health Department Conference Room. If anybody's interested in joining us, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Always something going on in Wellness Committee.
She's doing
You
a
guys
great
do-
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
yep,
Sarah.
Yep, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. We'll move on to Administrator's Report. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Sheeline. I'll keep it short. Quick update on our last year's community funding request to Congressman LaHood's office. His office is going to support our request again this year. That's the $4.9 million for our highway department new facility. We worked with Sam out of his DC office on re-preparing that application. And what the congressman is actually doing, which is a little bit different than other offices, is he's working on re-supporting and submitting the folks that he worked with last year to make sure that they have another opportunity at funding, which we really appreciate. We're excited about that. An update on BEAD, which is the broadband opportunity that we had worked with the Benton Institute, the state of Illinois, and a bunch of other partners. The U.S. Department of Commerce has recently changed some rules and regulations on how they are processing those from the state level to the Fed level. That is going to also change how all of the applicants that came into the state program is going to be looked at and then moved forward with. So that could potentially postpone the project performance for up to 1 to 2 years. Keep in mind that Lee County, surprisingly, has the most underserved residences in the entire state of Illinois with over 8,300. So that is an impact to us. We're working with our state and federal legislatures on that, on that as well, hoping to get a little bit of a response and understanding of how that's going to transpire and work with that new process over the next year. So more information to come on that, but we had a lot of work put into that from a county perspective, as well as our internet service provider partners. I think there were 6 different providers that were working on projects within Lee County. So that's going to be affected through this process. So just keep that in mind. Again, we all understand the new climate that we're in. We're just trying to understand how to respond appropriately from an operational perspective. To continue to give the benefits back to our constituents. June 6th, our budget forms are going out to department heads. Budget season is upon us. We had a department head meeting yesterday, just talked about a handful of things in regard to that, as well as, our ongoing capital restraints that we're going to be coming up against here over the next few fiscals. So we're going to be sending out those budget forms that I know Reed is diligently working on to get updated run rates for all the departments. Those are expected come back to me for review by June 30th. And then the first finance meeting for budget overview is actually July 22nd. Okay. So then we're back into it. All right. So be prepared. It's going to be a fun couple months. But we're excited to work through that and make sure that we continue to find ways to make the county operate.
And we'll have the schedule for the budget process next month.
The schedule is out. You guys
Or is that
have it
out?
in your
Is it out?
folder.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
out. We
I better
posted
look.
that.
Chairman better look at it.
Yeah, we posted that, I think, in February. So,
There it is. Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
yep, and it's in the finance
Appreciate it.
folder. Should be. So
Yep.
if you have any questions, please let me know.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Any questions for Jeremy before we move on? Okay, we've got approval of a monthly Joseph Meyer resolution, resolution 2025-05-001 for parcel number 13-21-01-153-005, and we will be making the motion to move this to executive. Is there a motion to be made? Moved by Kitson, seconded by Naylor. All those in favor, or any discussion on the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. We have the monthly sheriff's office report. Kind of some few interesting things in there as always. Now, Amy, we'll do your discussion regarding fines and fees next. And can you pull that up, Becky? Anyway, you can go ahead and get started while Becky pulls it up on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So you have a board action request for additional funds for the Tyler data conversion with an attachment explaining the different scopes of conversion. I believe going forward, we need this premium conversion because we are currently paperless right now, meaning we do not have actual physical files with paper in them. Our court documents, they come in, we scan them in our system, and then we can dispose of those paper documents after certain timeframes. Same thing with electronic filings. There is no paper. Documents come in through a queue, we accept them, they go directly into our case management system. To explain just a little bit of the conversion and how it would affect the clerk's office, we want to keep our current business practices in order to do that, we need this premium conversion. If we go with the basic conversion, the least amount of data is converted, which means we will not have certain data come over, and especially the big one is financial information. We would have to manually enter in accounts receivable in approximately 5,500 cases. We would have to enter in approximately 3,000 hearing dates and approximately 5,000 warrants, just to name a few. Now, I provided you with a printout. I don't know if you all saw that. It's an actual criminal felony case showing the fines and fees assessment on one individual case. There are about 28 different fines and fees with amounts listed in there that we could potentially have to manually enter in those in every case, which would affect people paying on their fines. And we don't want to miss any accounts receivable coming in and not getting money coming into the clerk's office. So that's a big one on our side. I don't want to speak for Charlie, but that'll also affect the state's attorney's office as well, as they would have to put manually enter in bonds and warrants and investigative reports and other things like that. I don't know if he wants to speak on behalf of that. If not, I know this is a huge expense to the county, but I believe it's the only way we can go going forward. I've spoken to many different counties that have done data conversions, and they have all told me to go with the premium conversion in order to improve data quality, reduce errors, and streamline the court process for all departments so we can make the operations of the court system better.
So that's what that, because you had this discussion, circuit clerk discussion regarding fines and fees, and you had that exhibit there, that actually was just to be used as an example of how this works.
Yeah, that's just one criminal felony case with all the fees in there that we'd have to manually enter in individual cases.
All right, yeah, because we were looking at that and we were trying to figure out what relevance that was. So
Right, that's
now
all it was.
that makes sense as you explain that.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an example so you could see in the system what it looks like currently, and going forward, it would be similar.
So Amy, so on this cost of the $512,000, what all is in that request?
That's
What
everything.
is all that?
That is everything. That's full data conversion. That's travel reimbursements. That's multi-stage reporting. That's everything.
So, and that's also includes the annual
Yes,
SAS charge?
the annual SAS fees, the first year is included. Year 2 and 3, department heads will put in their budget.
So we got to so we have to pay $180,000 for this fiscal year, even though the system's not even up and running.
No, as soon as we get a start date, after our start date, which we don't have yet because we have to get a few things, handled first. 30 days after the start date, we will have to come up with the first year SAS fees.
And what do you think the start date's gonna be?
Hopefully soon. July, August, September. We just have a few other things to finish up. Besides this, there's a few minor things, and then we'll get a date.
Okay, so you're positive that the SAS fees are gonna be due this fiscal year?
Pretty positive.
I mean, what I'm looking for, Amy, is, do we approve $512,000, or can we break this up and maybe approve a smaller number? And then we have our budget discussion, and then we can move on with the rest of it. I'm just looking for options.
Okay, let me just break it down a little bit, make it easier. So there's an 18-month timeline once we start this project. And after each stage, we have to come up with a certain amount of money. So like stage one, once stage one is done, which is approximately 2 months, we'll have to come up with, probably 200,000. And then another 200,000 every stage, but we have to meet those stages before we pay out. If that makes sense. Things can happen, things can come up. Unfortunately, the project could get pushed off a little bit here and there, depending on where we're at. But that is our projected timeline, is 18 months. And like I said, each stage will have a payout.
Okay, so we can anticipate this actually working over 3 fiscal years.
Yeah,
Yes, at this point, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in. I mean, I think Amy's presenting this to show to be completely transparent with everybody so that, hey, here's the total cost of the project. So everybody has clear eyes going into it up front. That is not what is going to probably be spent in this fiscal year, but she wants, and I think she wants the finance committee to buy in and understand that here's what the costs are going to be over the timeline of implementation, so that it's not, oh, I need a little bit more now, a little bit more later, when we actually have to make the payments.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of this is there's, for the contract and the amendment to be signed, I think would prefer as just from Amy's office and from the team to make sure that the funding is approved and available for the project before we get ourselves locked into, something that we're not committed to
Exactly.
financially. Is that correct, Amy?
That's absolutely correct.
Committee, have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple questions. Number one, I want to say, Amy and team, I 100% believe in technology and what that can do for you in your system. So I do think that is a huge need. Just trying to get in the weeds and understand a little bit as far as, because you talked about the different stages. Is there an invoice or something that the company has provided that maybe we could see? I'm assuming that that's been outlined, and
Yeah.
then that maybe help us put together that with the budgeting.
I do have, excuse me, I do have an 18-month timeline, yes, with prices. I can get everyone.
Perfect, because then that
we-
can kind of help.
And that's Jeremy just handed that to me, and we'll make sure that that's in your materials.
And then the second part of the question, because I saw in the discussion that you were looking to do like a project manager. But I'm trying to get my arms around, because I've been involved in conversions before, and typically that's part of the price. And I just wanted to see, are they providing support to you in regards to this, or how does that work?
Well, they do have their team, again, excuse me. They do have their team, and we do have our team with each department heads and people in the offices. But a lot of times when people do data conversions, they hire out a project manager. This is not included in this fee. We have talked about a project manager. And we would like to hire one, but I think we have to go out for bid. I think Jeremy might be putting something together for that, that we're going to discuss more. So department heads may be able to fund that. And we're not asking any money from the board for that, if we do get a prime or a project manager.
And I think I can jump in a little bit on that too, Amy, if you don't mind.
Okay, appreciate it.
I think the way that you're looking at for the project manager is not simply for the data conversion process itself, it's for the project as a whole. And it's going to be to have that same point person for each of the departments. So you've got probation, public defender's office, state's attorney's office, circuit clerk. that'll be the person that's going to be coordinating with Tyler on each of those departments so that everything is consistent across the board. The other thing to consider with it too is when you look at the circuit clerk's office, you're considering the circuit clerk's office as the hub for the entire courthouse. Everything is going to be pulled from the circuit clerk's office because that is the record for any type of case that's going through there. It's the court record for a criminal case or a civil case. So like with my office, anything that we're going to be doing in a criminal case, we're going to be pulling that information from the circuit clerk's office. So if they have information that is either faulty or corrupted or whatever it may be, we're not going to be able to consistently have that communication between our offices. I think that kind of clears up a little bit with what we're looking at in terms of the data conversion. But the project manager portion, as Amy was just saying, in speaking with the department heads as well, it looks like we're going to be able to coordinate that and split the costs across our budgets, and it won't be an increase for what we already have in our budgets.
Perfect. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Amy, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the final deadline for signing this and actually on the dotted line, so to speak? I think my understanding is you still have a little time.
I have a little time. The contract is signed.
Okay,
I did not sign the amendment. I was trying to get this approved before I signed the amendment for that premium conversion.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so the 512,000 is an expenditure for this fiscal year, is that correct?
No,
Okay, well, I'm looking at the paper here, so I'm just looking.
sorry. That is an
I don't have my
additional.
glasses on, so excuse me. Yeah, I can see that.
So we put in $1 million for capital before we had any numbers, knowing we were going to go forward with a project eventually. We didn't have numbers or quotes at that time. This is 500,000 additional to get that, meet that premium conversion.
Okay.
So that would be the total amount.
So do we know what the, excuse me, the expenditure is for this fiscal year?
We do not, but I have, if we start in a month or 2 or 3, stage 1 is supposed to be 3 months. So it's probably about $200,000 if we get on track. But again, we don't have that start date, so I don't.
So what I think the county could assume to expend this fiscal at minimum would be the service fees, which is going to be due 30 days after that amendment or the project start date is implemented.
Correct.
That's the $164,000.
Right.
What Amy had said earlier was that the other expenses or due dates would not come up until after that stage is complete. So it would also be safe to assume if we did not start until September, that means this fiscal, it would probably be 164,000, maybe a little more. Next fiscal would be the main chunk of all the expenses. And then they would roll into 27, 28 for the final, project to be rolled out and completed. So, it's going to be broken out, but next year is going to take the biggest hit.
Right. Thank you, Jeremy.
So kind of what I was thinking, Amy, was we go ahead and we approve this today, but as this evolves, could you make sure that you give a report to the finance committee so that we see when the invoices hit or are presented, that you bring that into the finance committee so that we can track that and as this thing all progresses.
Absolutely, Chairman.
Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, appreciate that. The reality here is that we have to do this. Number one, we've signed the contract, the initial contract with Tyler to do the conversion. It's really unfortunate that we did not get the grant to help us pay for this as we anticipated. I think, and Reed, if you want to jump in here, okay, what's the effect to the county and to our reserves? Basically, we're sitting at a little over $9 million in reserves right now, which $1 million of that in capital was budgeted for. But with not getting, we were understanding to get that grant. Okay, so we got 9 million. That sounds great and wonderful, but 4.6 roughly of that is our ordinance for our 30-day,
Not 90.
or 90-day,
Yeah.
yeah, no, sorry, 30-day. I had in my head 3 months and I said 30, it popped out 30 days. But 90 days of required reserves. So basically what our true reserves are is roughly about 4.2.
Yeah, I mean, I have a calculation of kind of our average last 12 months expenditures, right? To kind of gauge where that number is and can fluctuate on a month to month depending on 3 pay period months and timing of large expenditures. But you're looking at right around 4 to 4.5 million of reserve that we've said, hey, we need to have this available for 90 days worth of expenditures. So if you look at kind of our capital amounts and what we have budgeted to spend and what we have that we need to keep in that reserve, that basically brings the capital balance down to pretty minuscule, it kind of washes out to almost zero. Historically, we've budgeted for projects within capital, and we've tried to budget the full project cost so that we know what we're expecting to see in the future, knowing that these projects are going to be multi-year projects, and probably not all of those expenditures are going to be coming into capital in that particular year. Just a little, some
Right.
context on that full budget or, budgeted amount of capital spend this year.
But to the chairman's point, with the 4 to 4.5 that is set aside for our 90 days operational reserves, there was essentially like what, 4.2 left over in our capital fund, rainy day fund. And as Reed pointed out, what has been previously budgeted would pretty much utilize the majority of those dollars that are sitting in there right now. That being said, as Reed also pointed out, these projects are large, facility projects or infrastructure projects that have been put into capital some 2-3 years ago that are still not, the project hasn't started. That being said, we have had that discussion as department heads, as well as we're doing one-on-ones with some of the large capital users to really prioritize and understand what that schedule would look like for these projects and if they are even actually necessary at this moment. So we're working through that. I mean, we've been able to potentially pull out a little over $1 million already from some of those projects, knowing that, yes, we need them done, but can they wait for 4 years or 5 years? Totally. So we're going to be able to work through that as we get into the budget process a little bit further and get into more detail. But just giving you a little bit of heads up, like these are the things that we're working on internally right now.
And I think it's also fair to say that as a committee that we're capital has always been an area that because it is kind of been fungible of what is the timing that we do certain projects and whatnot. But as that has shrunk, it gets more critical that we really pay attention of what we are approving in capital. What is the timing? What are we actually looking at? It just makes it for a tougher process.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I mean, historically, the county is not in this position anyway, right? I mean, to have funds like this set aside for capital projects and reserves. So we're in a scenario where, ARPA came around and we were able to fund projects that we were never able to fund before and to start planning for future capital expenses. We're starting to see the other side of that now, where we just have to keep a closer eye on what we are expending and how we are scheduling out these projects and making sure that we're doing right by the finances that we actually have and what we can project for the future. So.
Let's get a motion on the table and then we can have further discussion. So moved by Bivens, seconded by Kitson, discussion. So is there any other questions for Amy in regards to, Charlie, is there?
What was the
Yeah.
motion?
Motion to move the resolution forward to executive.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't make that clear. I had it in my head, Charlie, but yeah.
Just want to make sure we're
The
clear.
motion was said in my head. I didn't say it. I didn't verbalize it correctly, I suppose. Did Becky have it? Becky said she had it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody knew Charlie. What, where were you over there?
Okay.
Anyway, any further discussion, any further questions for Amy? Amy, one thing before, I appreciate all the work. I know this has been a long process for you guys and your team and very much, we understand, I think, as a committee and as a board, how necessary it is and critical for you guys, to function efficiently across the street, and we get that. So, I don't ever think that as we go through and we question things and whatnot, that we don't support what you're doing here. We do. It's just that, it's a big project, it's a big expense, and we gotta make sure that we do it right.
Appreciate that, Chairman. I couldn't do it without all the other department heads as well and some judges involved. So, it was the whole team. We've been working on this for a couple of years now, so I do appreciate that.
Yep. Okay, any other questions in regard?
I just had a quick question because you talked about meeting together and how those capital things are fluid. Is there reporting that would kind of show like timeline and, that would maybe help kind of show because as those things come up?
That is something I am looking to build into our budgeting process. And last year was kind of our first year of asking departments when filling out their capital requests to give us a 3-year outlook. We got some information. Others we could probably do a little better. But I am trying to get us to a point where we could have a 5-year capital outlook of when projects are planning to be expended. So that is a goal, and hopefully this year we'll have some more detail within that presentation.
Okay, I just think that would be helpful when approving these kind of things and appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. Amy, appreciate it. All those in favor of the motion move to executive, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for
can-
your time today. I appreciate that.
Yep, you bet. Next on the agenda is Justice Benefits Incorporated proposal, discussion only. Who's doing the lead on that?
I can take that.
Yep.
So a couple months ago, myself, Judge Field Draper, Judge Ackert, and Leslie Dever, who's the 15th Circuit Trial Court Administrator, sat down with JBI and had a proposal from them in terms of recouping juvenile-related costs. So we've got juvenile abuse neglect cases. We also have juvenile delinquency cases, and there are multiple participants that are involved in all of that throughout the court system. So what JBI does is they act as a liaison for the county to find federal funding or grant sources to reimburse the costs that we may have for those specific areas. So it could be conflict attorneys that are hired on by the county to handle representation for mom or dad or whatever it may be in a JA case. It could be a guardian ad litem that's hired on by the county to act on the child's best interest. It could also be folks that are already actually even working in the county, like the probation office, if there's a probation officer that's involved in JD-related matters, or if there is, like my office, an assistant state's attorney that is doing work on behalf of JAJD matters. So what they do is they find those sources and find approval for them. They don't receive any money unless they find funding reimbursement for the county. And then there is a contract that we're working through right now. I've forwarded on to Jeremy as well as Chairman Olson. I think I maybe sent it along to you as well, Jim. If I didn't, I can get it over to you. What it is, there's a couple things that we have to work through. There was some issues that at least Jeremy and I saw initially that I think needs to be changed in that contract moving forward. But just to put it on your radar, again, I don't believe it will be an expense to the county based on the fact that they're not receiving any money from us. It's just going to be taken off from that funding source that would either come from the federal government or grants that are found through those processes.
This isn't something you used before. This is something,
It's nothing I'm aware of before
Different.
that we've used. And I'm not sure how Leslie got involved in it to begin with. She was the one that brought it to our attention. But it seems like a pretty good mechanism for the county to use to try to reimburse some of the costs that we have for those matters.
sure. But no action today.
Nope,
So
nope.
just a heads up.
Just let you know, yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
One thing that we do have to look
Okay.
at down the road that was part of the contract that Jeremy and I had discussed and Judge Acker and I had discussed is there's going to have to be somebody in the county that's going to be like a facilitator or a manager of it. We just haven't identified that person yet.
Okay. Just how much expenses do we have in that would be covered by this type of what they're looking to get grants for?
Yeah, it's
Do you
going to
have-
depend on what's available, obviously, at the time. But I mean, when you look at time and money that's spent through those matters, almost every Monday, there's an entire court calling for JAJD matter. So anytime that happens, some of these cases can have upwards of 4 or 5 attorneys that are involved per case. It just kind of depends on how many parents are involved. It depends on the guardian ad litem, and then my office's involvement as well. I don't know that it would spread out into anything DCFS related because they have their own funding sources for it,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of money that could be recouped for it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yep.
Okay. C, GIS ETSB Memorandum of Understanding.
All right, I got this, and I'm going to ask Shelley to also speak on it a little bit. So a few months back, Shelley and the chairman of the TSB board, Ryan Buskell, Chief Buskell, had come to us and discussed how heavily involved the GIS department is, not only with their current operation, but with as they continue to move towards the next generation 911 services, and how what GIS, our county GIS department is doing is above and beyond their standard services that they currently have with the ETSB operation. And they, you know, if you guys have not talked with Sammy or Logan or the GIS team down there before, I would highly recommend you do so, because GIS is involved in so much that the county does, that not just the county, but our partners, the city of Dixon, rural fire, emergency management. I mean, they are involved in a lot. And we are very fortunate to have the team we do. So kudos to them. And this is what brought this MOA or MOU to light, was ETSB felt the same way. And they wanted to give extra funding towards the GIS department to help bolster the services and the cause, and to give back to above and beyond what they are already doing, because they are doing above and beyond the services that are expected. So we worked, myself and Charlie worked with Shelley and her team to come up with an MOA that made sense to us. And, you know, essentially this is no action needed on this. We wanted to just discuss this with you because there is going to be some extra finances that come into the department. We found a great use for them. It's going to be given back to the team due to the services above and beyond their normal work scope. And we've built that out with the department, ETSB, and the treasurer's office. So Shelley, if you wanted to talk a little bit about, what they do for you and why this mattered, that'd be great.
I can. I wasn't prepared to, but absolutely. I could go back to 2004 with the historical data with GIS, the ETSB, and the county. There used to be an exchange of services agreement whereby the ETSB provided the iFiber, the UPS, and all of the electricity, if you will, for fiber for the county. In exchange of service, the county provided GIS services. The ETSB created what you now see on your GIS map is the point file, which is basically the little dot on the GIS. You can click on that dot and open up and see a picture. ETSB paid a lot of money to have an individual from Geocom, was this company that we used back in the day, to literally walk every single road center line in Lee County and take photographs and create a GPS, a global positioning point, for every house and structure in the county. At that time, Wendy Ryerson was in the assessor's office. So the assessor's office and the ETSB worked very closely to create this GIS product that you now see on the Lee County website. Moving forward, fast forward through several years of collaboration between the two entities, iFiber is no longer being used and the GIS services are in place and have been built. However, now there is a statutory mandate by the ETSB to provide NG 911 GIS, which is separate from our shared data set. So the NG 911 GIS basically is reporting to the state in quarterly updates, which is above and beyond what the GIS department has typically done over the last several years. So the ETSB, excuse me, I have two of my representatives here today. We went into budgetary discussions last fiscal year and the ETSB approved a $6,000 GIS services fee. Basically, we are very specific, meaning the ETSB and the statute is very specific on what we can spend our funds on and how we spend them, and so that there's an allocation and documentation, so the funds aren't what we call rated, and then we would be ineligible for federal funding if our funds were directed in another manner other than what's statutorily required or statutorily allowed. So in collaboration with Jeremy and Jennifer, the treasurer's office, and the board approved a $6,000 GIS services fee to be paid directly to the county GIS services, which basically entails Sammy and Logan. We just feel that they are going above and beyond what their normal day-to-day operations are to do something specific, which is statutorily required. We have to have a GIS data maintainer. If we don't use county resources, we would have to outsource it. So we'd like to keep the money at home. We'd like to make sure that they are continued with the services. We want to keep the GIS people that we have because they know how to perform these functions, the quarterly updates. They are statutorily there on record with the Illinois State Police as our GIS data maintainer. And we just felt it's only appropriate to make sure that the county is reimbursed and the services that are actually rendered are reimbursed to those individuals performing the services.
Thanks, Shelley. That's the background and information we needed. So I just wanted to make sure that the Finance Committee was aware that this agreement is going to be signed by Chairman Olson after this meeting, and that we really appreciate the collaboration with Shelley and her team and ETSB and what our GIS department does. So, any questions?
Can the agreement be put in on board?
We will slide it in there. Yep, the signed agreement. I'll put that in there for you.
Yep, very good. Any questions from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item D, Lee County vendor list for department heads and employees. Jeremy?
I think actually that's Tom.
Oh, that's Tom.
Yep. Tom, are you going to be speaking on that?
That's right. Yeah, I did see that email. If,
I do believe that's coming from the Claims Committee. Yeah.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. When we were in Claims Committee the last time, we frequently have a claim that'll come through, and usually to a local hardware store or something local, that our tax number is not on record and the taxes assessed to the invoice. And then we have to circle back to whoever made the purchase and they have to see if we can't get the tax removed. And the subject was brought up by Tom that we should maybe have a local vendor list that has all of our tax numbers for all of our employees to go ahead and see it, and it might make it an easier decision for them, or knowing that they don't have to present the tax number or ask for a no tax service. So that's what it was about. And
Yeah,
that's,
no,
and I
you're
think
correct. Thank you, Nancy.
Becky was there. I think we discussed it. We were all in conversation together. So if you have any
Sorry.
questions, I can probably.
My
expound
mind
on
wasn't
it.
there when you
I
started.
can
but-
see that.
Yeah, I blanked.
It's okay, Tom. We've
in
all been there.
industry, like, if you're gonna buy stuff and you go to Ace Hardware, they've got all the tax information. They need you to sign who you are when you pick it up, or you're on a list. And we just, our job in claims, obviously, is not to suggest where we buy stuff. But in looking at it, it appears we spend a lot of time traveling places outside the county that we would encourage to try to spend the money in Lee County if we can with our taxpayers. So that was kind of our thought process of that both the tax revenue that we don't have to pay it, try and get it back and all that question, and also spend the money in the county if we can.
It would also make, I'm sorry, it would also make it easier on whoever made the purchase not to have to circle back when we call them and say, can you call and get this tax removed? So
Yep.
it's, a little bit more efficient on our timeframes
lot.
as well. Thank you.
Just to provide a little context, our tax exemption certificate that we get lasts it's either 3 or 5 years. And we just, I think in March, had it expire. So we got a new copy. It probably just needs to be redistributed to some of those vendors where maybe it fell off because of that expiration date. But
Any further discussion on that or any action? Well, we can't take any action today.
No,
but-
we talked to Becky about it and she said she just put it on the agenda for discussion so everybody would know what our thoughts were. And
Okay,
it's just a recommendation. There's no
Yeah. Because
action required unless
People are
you.
called back to get this tax off of the bill, and it's extra steps for everybody. The committee has to go back and call people and go through it, and it just makes it simpler. if we can.
Well, sometimes that it doesn't come back and circle around till the next claims meeting or the next month even. Sometimes by the time we get the refund and then it's complicated. We're just trying to make everybody's life a little easier and efficient, and more efficient. And get all the tax deductions that we need and that we are,
okay.
allowed.
And just to clarify one more thing, though, that certificate's good. I mean, I know we want to spend our dollars in Lee County when we can, but obviously there's times like going to IACO and stuff like that. But that certificate should apply to anything in Illinois. So it'd be a good thing to maybe have in everybody's back pocket when they're traveling.
Okay. Any questions or any further discussion on that topic? Hearing none, and we do not have an executive session. Anything for the cause?
Did you do the ARPA report or was?
Oh, did I skip? Oh, damn, Patty's looking at me with daggers. Oh, my
I thought they
gosh.
didn't have one.
Oh,
I'm
I don't know
sorry.
how I skipped. I guess we got the wellness report and I went, phew, right over. So we will backtrack and we will ask the ARPA team to give their ARPA report.
All right, Patty and I are here to give you your quarterly ARPA update. So total award, 6.6 million. We had to have the funds obligated to projects or expenses by December 31st of 2024. We did have that done. We had every last dollar obligated to a project. The remaining ARPA funds that we had in capital that were obligated to capital expenses, $101,191.74. Those were fully expended last month. We came here with a board action request form, or actually I think Paul did,
Right.
to allocate those to some capital expenses that had already occurred. Patty and I worked on our annual report that we submitted to Treasury. That was submitted April 22nd. We have found that each year we do the report, they add more to the report. So we have projects, some of those first projects that we completed and we paid for, and we have listed on there as completed, We have to go back into all of those and add additional data or dates or information that they might need. So each time we're going back into some of these old projects to update additional information that they've requested. I did attend a webinar prior to us doing our annual report, and a lot of entities were asking about a closeout report. A lot of entities have spent their funds, right after they were awarded, and they're still having to go in and do this report, which they don't have anything left to report except to add this additional information. And they're asking about a closeout report. Treasury indicated they're working on it. They didn't have any information beyond that to provide as far as details that they'll be seeking or when that will be available. As we have information on that, we will let the county know and update you. But that's what we've got for finance or for ARPA. Anything else? I miss anything? Okay. Any questions?
Any questions for Sarah and Patty? And I do apologize. I did not mean to skip over you guys. Any other questions? Thank you. As always, thank you guys. We really appreciate the effort that you guys do with getting those reports done and everything. So appreciate it. All right. Is there anything else good for the cause? Finance Committee. Hearing none, I entertain motion to adjourn. Moved by Bivens, second by Kitson. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.